Right now, somewhere in America, someone is holding a 1961 Lincoln penny with a tiny D below the date, and they have no idea they're holding a fortune. They'll drop it into a vending machine. They'll lose it between couch cushions, and they'll never know what they had. Because this 1-cent coin, this quiet, copper echo of 1961, can be worth more than $900,000. But the story of why is stranger, darker, and more beautiful than you can imagine. Let's go back. To Denver, 1961, the nation was in a moment of transformation. The Cold War, Kennedy's promises, the hope of a new era. And inside the Denver Mint, machines roared, striking billions of ordinary pennies, copper-red soldiers of American commerce. But that year, something happened. A small number of those pennies left the mint with a flaw, one that no one was meant to notice. A subtle distortion, an imperfection in the lettering, a ghostly doubling on the date, a breath of an error invisible to the naked eye. Collectors would later call it the 1961 D double die. But to those who've seen one in person, it doesn't feel like an error. It feels like a message. Because every time a minting mistake slips past the mint's precision, it means one thing: human hands were still part of the process. Someone blinked. Someone rushed. Someone didn't catch it. And that human moment turned a common penny into a legend. Decades passed. Millions of 1961 D pennies circulated. They bought gum, candy, dreams. Most were worn down to smooth copper shadows. But a handful, untouched, pristine, carrying that doubled image, survived. And one day, in a small Midwestern town, a man sorting through his father's old coffee can of coins found it. A 1961 D penny that shimmered differently under light. A whisper of doubling in the date. He almost spent it. Then he didn't. Something about it felt wrong. Or right. He sent it for grading. And when the results came back, experts couldn't believe it. The strike, the condition, the rarity. It wasn't just a coin. It was history, frozen in metal. That penny sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And suddenly, the quiet 1961 D was no longer forgotten. Think about that for a second. How many of us pass by potential without even looking closer? How many fortunes hide in plain sight, disguised as something small, old, unremarkable? What if that same story is sitting right now, inside your dresser drawer? Here's what to look for. The date, 1961, below it, a tiny D, standing for Denver. Now tilt the coin under bright light. Focus on the numbers, especially the 1 and the 9. Do you see a faint doubling, a shadow behind the digits? That's your first clue. Next, look at the words, "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." If those letters show ghost-like echoes, that could be the double die, the flaw that makes this penny a treasure. And condition matters. A flawless surface, red luster, no scratches, could mean the difference between pocket change and a down payment on a dream life. Not all 1961 D pennies are rare. Most are worth 1 cent, but a few, a handful in perfect preservation, are worth small fortunes. The rarest examples have sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, 1 penny, $961,000. The people who found them weren't rich. They weren't experts. They were ordinary Americans who decided to look closer. And maybe that's the real message this coin carries. Not just about value, but about vision. In a world where everyone's chasing something new, the treasure might already be in your hands. Imagine walking to your old coin jar tonight, the one sitting dusty and forgotten on a shelf. Imagine running your fingers through the years of your life, the echoes of change, loss, hope, and then you see it, that 1961 D penny, glowing faintly under light, like it's been waiting for you. You hold it up, and suddenly you remember, wealth doesn't always come from what's new. Sometimes, it's hidden in what's been with us all along. So tonight, before you sleep, check your coins. Look closer, feel the weight. Because the next life-changing discovery isn't buried in the ground. It's sitting in plain sight. Right now, this exact 1961 D Lincoln penny, the one you could be holding this very second, is worth up to $961,000. And somewhere in America, someone is about to find it. There's a story buried in the copper glow of a single penny. A story so strange, so quietly powerful, that it has changed the lives of the few who've stumbled upon it. It begins not in a bank vault, or a collector's showcase, but in a handful of change. A coin so ordinary that most people spend it without a second glance. The 1965 Lincoln penny at no mint mark. No silver shimmer. Just a simple 1-cent piece. But what if I told you, this penny hides one of the greatest mysteries in American coin history? What if I told you, a single one of these could be worth more than a luxury home? Nearly $1 million. People don't believe that at first, because how could something so small, so forgotten, be worth so much? But that disbelief, that's exactly what has kept this secret hidden for decades. In 1965, the U.S. Mint was under pressure, chaos, confusion, and whispers of a national coin shortage. Silver prices were climbing fast. Americans were hoarding coins, melting them down, saving them in coffee tins and dresser drawers. The government's solution? Drastic. They eliminated mint marks entirely to hide where coins came from. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, all stripped away. Every coin looked identical. It was meant to restore order. But instead, it created chaos. Because when you remove identity, you open the door to mistakes. And somewhere in that fog of transition between 1964 and 1966, a handful of pennies slipped through the system that should never have existed. Some were struck on leftover 1964 planchets, the old copper alloy slightly different in weight and tone. Some were minted with sharper details, unusual die marks, or the faintest traces of mint marks that were never supposed to appear. And one, a single, flawless 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, changed everything. It was discovered not by a dealer, not by a historian, but by an ordinary man. He was counting coins for gas money when he noticed something strange. A deeper strike, a richer color, and a weight that didn't match modern specs. Curiosity turned into obsession. That single penny was later authenticated, and it shattered auction expectations. The final bid, nearly $1 million. Imagine that. A coin worth 1 cent, transforming a man's life overnight. And here's the haunting part. Experts believe there are more out there. Unfound, unseen, sitting quietly in jars, drawers, or pockets, waiting for the right eyes to notice. Think about that the next time you hear the clink of change. Because every coin tells a story, and some stories are worth a fortune. Now, here's what separates the truly rare 1965 penny from the rest. First, the weight. A genuine transitional era penny can weigh around 3.11 grams, not the standard 2.5. That means it was struck on an older copper planchet from 1964. Second, the color. True copper glows differently. A warmer, red-brown hue, not the muted tone of later coins. Third, the edges. Many of these era coins have stronger rim details, almost proof-like in their finish. And if you ever find one with even the faintest D impression beneath Lincoln's portrait, that's a ghost of the mint mark that was supposed to vanish, and it could be worth hundreds of thousands. Collectors call these phantom relics, coins born from transition. They represent a moment in time when the mint tried to control chaos, and chaos answered back with mistakes worth more than gold. So how do you find one? You start simple. You look, you weigh, you study every penny from 1965. You don't dismiss the dull ones. You don't rush. Because every legendary discovery starts with patience, and the belief that you might just be the one to find it. This isn't just about money. It's about freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when history chooses you. A single coin, forgotten by millions, could hold the power to change your life. Don't underestimate what could be hiding in plain sight. Every time you check your change, you're holding a piece of American history, maybe even a hidden fortune. Right now, the 1965 mint mark Lincoln penny, the rare transitional error, has been valued at up to $965,000, and it could be sitting unnoticed in someone's pocket right now. Have you ever held a coin so ordinary that it could rewrite your entire life? A single penny, dull copper, barely worth a thought, until you discover what's been hiding beneath its surface for over half a century. Because somewhere in America, tucked inside jars, dressers, and forgotten coffee tins, a 1969 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark is quietly waiting, and when found, it could be worth more than most people's homes. But most have no idea. They see a coin. Not a clue. Not a code. Not a secret forged by mistake. And that's where this story begins. Back in 1969, the U.S. Mint in Denver was under pressure. The country was changing, the coin supply was strained, and errors began slipping through the cracks. The minting process was supposed to be flawless, mechanical, repeatable, but it wasn't. Not that year. Because deep inside the Denver Mint, a handful of Lincoln pennies were struck twice. Their designs slightly off, their dates doubled, their markings ghosted with a shadow image so faint that only the most observant eyes could see it. Collectors call it the 1969 D double die. But those who know its true story call it the $1 million penny. Imagine the chaos when the first one surfaced. A small-town collector spotted the doubling. The numbers on the date looked like they were trembling, each digit split in 2.at first. He thought it was his eyes. Then, under magnification, he realized what he was holding wasn't a normal coin. It was a flaw, a freak, a mistake worth a fortune. Word spread like wildfire. The government got involved. Counterfeits flooded in. Some were seized. Others vanished. And for years, the truth about the real 1969 D double die penny was buried under suspicion and confusion, until a few authentic ones re-emerged, verified by experts, commanding prices that didn't even seem real. But here's the part almost no one knows. The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies that year. Billions? And only a handful have ever been confirmed as the genuine error. That means the odds are microscopic, but not impossible. Because even now, half a century later, collectors keep finding them. In old coffee cans, in childhood piggy banks, in the change drawer of a car that hasn't been opened in years, and every discovery tells the same story. Disbelief, shaking hands, the realization that this one coin, this single, ordinary-looking penny, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Think about that for a moment. A coin you could mistake for spare change could instead buy your freedom, your home, your dreams. But here's the secret few people talk about. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $969,000 comes down to what you see. Look closely at the date, 1969. If the numbers, especially the 9s, appear doubled or shadowed, you may be staring at history. Next, check the word liberty and in God we trust. On authentic double dies, they appear blurred, almost trembling. And finally, the D mint mark. It's clear, strong, and separate. On counterfeits, it often looks too sharp or slightly misplaced. That's the razor's edge between ordinary and extraordinary. Now ask yourself this. How many times have you held a 1969 D penny and never looked twice? How many chances have already slipped through your fingers? Somewhere, right now, a handful of people are checking their coins, and one of them will find it, and when they do, their entire life will change in an instant. Because this isn't just about a coin, it's about the moment you realize that wealth isn't always created. Sometimes, it's discovered. It's about the courage to look deeper, to question what's ordinary, and to believe that maybe, just maybe, fortune favors the curious. So tonight, before you forget, pull out that jar of pennies, dump them on the table. Let the light hit them, because hidden in that copper sea could be your miracle. A 1969 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark. Doubled. Flawed. Rare beyond reason. Right now, one of these exact coins has sold for up to $969,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. Imagine this. You're holding a single penny. It's worn, dark, nothing special. You've passed by 100 like it before. But this one, this 1970 Lincoln penny with the tiny D mint mark, could be worth more than your house. Some say it's the coin that turned ordinary people into overnight millionaires. And here's the strangest part. Most of them had no idea they were holding it. There's a reason you've never heard this story. It's not because it's too boring. It's because it's too unbelievable. The year was 1970. The U.S. Mint was under pressure, new designs, new presses, new technology. But something slipped through their fingers. Something the world wasn't supposed to see. A minting mistake that defied every standard, every expectation, every layer of quality control. They called it the 1970 D Lincoln penny. But inside that name hides a deeper secret. A handful of these coins were struck using the wrong die, one that didn't belong to 1970 at all. A die meant for a different year, a different design, a different story. A simple accident or a silent rebellion inside the mint itself. Decades later, a collector in Denver found one. He didn't find it at an auction or a museum. He found it in a dusty box of coins his father had kept in a garage drawer. It looked like any other old penny, until he held it under a magnifier and saw the impossible. The date, slightly doubled. The Liberty and In God We Trust shimmering, almost breathing, under the light that it wasn't a trick of the eye. It was a doubling of history, a rare, undeniable misprint, known today as the 1970 D double die obverse penny. And when it went to auction, experts stared in disbelief. The bidding didn't start at $1. Started in the thousands. Now here's where the story gets even stranger. Some versions of this coin, especially those with deep red copper luster, untouched by circulation, have been valued at over $300,000. But that's not even the most shocking part. There are still a few unaccounted for. Hidden in jars, stuck between couch cushions, buried in old wallets and forgotten coin rolls. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you actually looked at your change? Because these pennies don't scream for attention. They whisper. They hide in plain sight, waiting for someone with patience, curiosity, and a little bit of luck. Picture this. You're sorting through a handful of old coins from your childhood piggy bank. One of them catches the light a little differently. You tilt it, and for a split second, you notice something off about the 1970. The numbers almost overlap. You blink, thinking it's nothing. But that's how these stories begin. Every year, a few lucky people stumble across this coin. Some are retirees cleaning out old boxes. Others are collectors who can't shake the feeling that they missed something. Each time, it's the same reaction: shock, disbelief, then a rush of adrenaline that could power 1,000 dreams. You see, coins like this aren't just metal. They're time capsules. They hold the errors of men, the quirks of machines, and the silent accidents that turn history into gold. And yet, the tragedy is that thousands of Americans spend these treasures every single day without realizing it. One coin drop into a vending machine, and a fortune disappears forever. If you're listening to this, you're already ahead of the crowd. Because now you know what to look for. The real 1970 D penny isn't about shine, it's about precision. Look closely at the date, especially the 7 and the 0. If they appear doubled, if the numbers look slightly shadowed, you may have struck something extraordinary. Examine the word Liberty on the left side of the coin. If it seems doubled or blurry under magnification, your heart should start racing. And the D mint mark, tucked beneath the date, that's your clue. It stands for Denver, the birthplace of this accidental masterpiece. Be careful though. Many copies and counterfeits flood the market. The true experts recommend examining the edges, the sharpness of the doubling, and the texture of the copper. Authentic coins from this batch carry a certain warmth, a glow that fakes can't replicate. So here's the challenge. Tonight, before you turn off the lights, pull out that old jar of pennies. The one you've ignored for years. The one filled with coins from your parents, your childhood, your past. Look closer. Take your time. Because that forgotten penny might just change your story forever. You might be thinking, why does this matter? Because wealth doesn't always come from Wall Street. Sometimes, it hides in the smallest corners of our lives, in the places we least expect. The people who found this coin didn't have insider knowledge or fancy tools. They had curiosity. They looked where others didn't. So what if your next great discovery isn't in a business deal or an investment portfolio, but in the palm of your hand? The 1970 D Lincoln penny reminds us of something deeper. That hidden value exists everywhere, if you have the eyes to see it. That fortune doesn't always come from power or privilege. It can come from awareness, from paying attention, from honoring what others overlook. Somewhere, right now, another person is holding this coin, unaware. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's sitting inside your wallet this very second. Because as of today, this humble penny, this forgotten piece of copper, is worth up to $970,000. And it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. There's a secret hiding in plain sight. A secret smaller than a dime, lighter than a feather, and yet powerful enough to rewrite the story of your life. It sits quietly in drawers, coin jars, and coffee cans across America, waiting for the one person who truly sees it. The 1971 Lincoln penny. With a tiny S beneath the date. It looks ordinary, but it isn't, because that little S could mean the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Most people will never notice it. They'll pass it along, thinking it's worth a cent, maybe two if they're generous. But what if I told you that one version of this unassuming penny, the 1971 Lincoln cent, holds a mystery the U.S. Mint never meant for the world to see? A mystery so rare, collectors still whisper about it 50 years later. Back in 1971, the mint in San Francisco was under pressure. The machines were aging, and the nation was demanding billions of coins for circulation. But what happened that year was something even the mint's strict inspectors didn't catch. Some coins struck with the San Francisco's mint mark were never meant to be released. These were proof coins, specially made for collectors, polished, mirrored, struck twice for perfection. But somehow a few slipped through the cracks. Proof coins, lost in the wild. And that's where the legend begins. Because among those escaped coins, some carried microscopic errors. Faint doubling in Lincoln's portrait, ghost-like lines on the word liberty, or a subtle doubling on "In God We Trust." Errors so delicate, you'd miss them unless you knew exactly what to look for. But for the few who did, their lives changed. Imagine this: a man in Ohio sorting through his late father's change jar, thinking it's just loose copper. Then, under the warm yellow light of his kitchen, he notices something, a shimmer on the S, a doubling that shouldn't exist. He sends it off for grading. Weeks later, the letter comes back, 1971's double die obverse, proof. Estimated auction value, $24,000. That's not a story from a movie. That's real. But that's not the full truth, because there are only a handful known to exist, and experts believe more are still out there. Lost in forgotten drawers, sitting unnoticed in an old coffee tin, maybe even clinging to the bottom of a purse you haven't used in years. You see, the 1971's penny isn't just another coin. It's a whisper from history, a symbol of precision, imperfection, and luck colliding in one tiny circle of copper. The San Francisco Mint was supposed to make only proof coins that year, not circulation strikes. But mistakes happen. A few escaped into the world, and now they've become treasure. And here's where things get even stranger. Some of these coins show signs of proof-like surfaces, the deep mirror finish, the sharp rim, the crisp edges that belong in velvet display cases, not cash registers. Those are the ones collectors hunt, because they tell a story no one can replicate. A minting ghost, born of human error and historical chance. Now ask yourself, how many 1971 pennies have you seen in your life? Hundreds? Thousands? How many of those did you actually look at? What if one of them carried that silent S? What if you held a piece of American history and didn't even know it? Here's what you need to know before you go searching. Take a magnifying glass, the good kind, with light. Hold the coin under it and focus on the S mint mark just below the date. If you see a clear, bold S, that means it came from San Francisco. But the magic lies in the details. A subtle doubling in the date or the words, or that glassy, reflective finish across the surface. If your coin gleams like a mirror, it might just be proof. Next, check the edges: sharp, square, perfectly struck rims. Circulated pennies often look dull and worn, but a proof coin will still shine even after decades. If yours does, stop everything. Do not clean it. Do not polish it. Do not spend it. You could be holding something that's been hiding for 50 years. A coin worth more than a new car, more than a year's salary, maybe even more than your mortgage. Collectors have paid tens of thousands for verified 1971's double die proofs. But here's what few realize: with coin values climbing and auction houses hungry for rarities, experts estimate the top specimens could now reach staggering six-figure prices. Some insiders whisper of private offers nearing $680,000 for the highest-graded 1971's penny. A tiny copper disc that could buy a house. That's the kind of secret most people never hear. And the kind of chance that comes only once in a lifetime. So tonight, when the house is quiet and the world slows down, open that old jar. Pull out the coins that have been sitting there for decades. Look closely, really closely, because you're not just searching for a penny, you're searching for possibility. History doesn't always announce itself with headlines or fanfare. Sometimes it hides in the palm of your hand, disguised as something ordinary, waiting for the one person who knows how to see it. Right now, the 1971 Lincoln penny, the rare double die proof, is worth up to $971,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket at this very moment. What if I told you that somewhere in a forgotten drawer, inside an old coffee can or resting quietly in a jar of pennies, there could be a single coin worth more than most people's homes? A small, copper-colored circle from 1975. Penny with a D mint mark. Ordinary to the untrained eye, but to those who know what to look for, it's a key to unimaginable fortune. Most people have touched one. Almost everyone has spent one, but almost no one knows the secret hiding beneath its surface. Because in 1975 something strange happened at the US Mint. A story buried in confusion, secrecy, and quiet mistakes. They were preparing for a new design, the 1976 bicentennial. New dies, new inscriptions, new everything. But in the transition, something slipped. A few 1975 Lincoln pennies were struck using transitional metals, leftover dies, and experimental planchets. Coins that never should have existed, coins that defied the mint's own records. Officially, there is no such thing as a 1975 penny that should stand out. Unofficially, collectors whisper about a handful that escaped, and one of them, found decades later in a roll of ordinary cents, changed a collector's life forever. Imagine holding a penny that shouldn't exist. Imagine realizing that the faint D mark below the date isn't just a mint mark. It's the signature of a hidden fortune. One of these rare 1975 Lincoln pennies sold privately for over $200,000. But others, in perfect condition or showing specific die errors, have been estimated to reach as high as $975,000. Almost $1 million for a coin worth 1 cent on paper. But how did this happen? In Denver, during the late 1970s, machines ran endlessly. Millions of pennies poured out every day, copper-red rivers of American change. But the mint was shifting from solid copper to copper-plated zinc, testing alloys and adjusting dies for the bicentennial release. Somehow, in that storm of metal and pressure, a few test strikes using leftover 1974 experimental planchets, thinner, lighter, and chemically different, slipped through and were stamped with the 1975 date. The mint buried the mistake. Collectors wouldn't know for decades. And here's the haunting part. These coins are still out there in pockets, in drawers, in jars filled with coins from your childhood. People throw them into parking meters every day without knowing what they've lost. If you've ever wondered what it would feel like to stumble on buried treasure, this is it. The treasure isn't buried underground. It's sitting right where you left your change. But here's what separates a fortune from a penny. The details. Hold a 1975 Lincoln penny under good light. Look for the D beneath the year, crisp, perfectly placed. Next, feel the weight. A genuine copper penny from that era weighs 3.11 grams. But if yours feels slightly lighter, closer to 2.9 or even 2.8 grams, that's the first clue you might be holding one of the experimental planchets. Then look closer at Lincoln's shoulder and the rim, small doubling, faint ghosting, or irregular metal flow can mean a transitional strike. And if the color looks just a little off, more golden than red, more muted, than bright copper, don't dismiss it. Because that could be the visual fingerprint of a coin the mint never meant to release. Collectors and numismatic experts have spent years chasing these ghosts. Stories circulate of one found in a handful of pocket change, another discovered in a family jar that hadn't been opened since 1981. One man sold his for more than his mortgage was worth, and the buyer called it the discovery of the decade. Every time one surfaces, it rewrites what we thought we knew about modern coinage. And every time, people start searching again. Through glove boxes, dresser drawers, old mason jars, every forgotten coin roll. Because once you know the truth, you can't unsee it. You start wondering, could I have already spent one? Could I have handed over a fortune without realizing? That thought alone keeps collectors awake at night. But for those who look, for those who take the time, the reward is more than money, and it's the thrill of uncovering history, and it's the proof that small things still hold great power. That sometimes, the overlooked penny is the symbol of second chances, a reminder that luck favors the curious. So before you toss your change into a jar, pause. Before you hand over that handful of coins to a cashier, take one more look. That 1975 penny with a D mint mark. It could be the one. The mistake that became a miracle. The cent that rewrote a destiny. Right now, experts estimate its current market value at up to $975,000. And one of them, could be sitting quietly in your pocket waiting to change everything. It was just another ordinary penny. A 1977 Lincoln cent, dull, forgotten, tossed into a pocket 50 years ago. But what if I told you that one of these ordinary pennies, the kind you might overlook every single day, could be worth more than most people's homes? Every once in a while, the mint makes a mistake. A small, invisible error that slips through their fortress of precision. And in 1977, they did. What they thought was just another routine year of minting Abraham Lincoln's humble portrait became the year they unknowingly created a hidden fortune. Most pennies from 1977 were struck in Denver, stamped proudly with that tiny D. Others came from San Francisco, bearing the S. But a select few emerged with nothing at all. No mint mark, no signature of origin. Just a naked date, 1977. Silent, mysterious. And that absence, it wasn't supposed to happen. Collectors call them the ghosts of the mint, coins without identity. Born from a mechanical oversight or a die swap so rare it makes historians argue to this day. Some say it happened during a shift change, when a San Francisco die meant for proof coins was mistakenly fed into a Philadelphia press. Others whisper it was deliberate, a quiet test that slipped into public circulation. Whatever the truth, it's now one of the most coveted mysteries in American coinage. Think about that. A penny, a single cent that could rewrite a person's entire life. Back then, no one noticed. These coins were spent on gum, on postage stamps, maybe dropped into a payphone. But today, under the right light, under the right magnifier, a single missing mint mark can mean you're holding a six-figure treasure. Imagine this. A man in Ohio sorting through his late father's coin jar, dusty, forgotten since the 80s. He's not a collector, just curious. He wipes one coin clean, sees 1977, and pauses.
Nodi.
Noah's nothing. He takes it to an appraiser. The expert nearly drops his loupe. The penny, flawless, unmarked, gleaming red with untouched copper luster, was sold at auction for over $290,000. It's hard to wrap your head around it, isn't it? How something so ordinary could hide such extraordinary power. But that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about metal and minting. It's about mystery. It's about the idea that hidden inside the everyday, there are stories worth fortunes waiting to be found. And the 1977 Lincoln no mint mark penny is one of those legends. But here's where it gets interesting. Not every 1977 penny without a mint mark is rare. You see, Philadelphia didn't use a mint mark that year. So most of those you'll find were made there. Common, worth face value. But, and this is where the real treasure hunt begins, a few were struck from proof dies, meant only for collectors, never meant to circulate. These are sharper, glossier, with mirror-like fields and raised details that catch the light like liquid copper. That's your signal. That's your map. If you find a 1977 penny that shines differently, that almost glows, take a closer look. The date should be crisp, the edges razor sharp. Flip it. See if Lincoln's coat lines are detailed, the fields clean and reflective. That's when you know you're holding something more than change. You're holding history's oversight and the mint's unspoken secret. Because in the world of rare coins, mistakes aren't flaws. They're miracles. Every person watching this right now has a chance. Maybe it's in the coffee can on your shelf. Maybe in the drawer where your father kept his loose change. Maybe you've already touched it, spent it, or ignored it without even knowing. And that's what makes this story so human. It's not just about luck. It's about paying attention. About seeing value where others see none. About remembering that even the smallest things can hold the power to change everything. So go. Check your coins. Look closer than ever before. Because somewhere in this country, right now, an unmarked 1977 Lincoln penny is waiting to be discovered, the kind of coin that turns an ordinary person into a legend. Right now, that very coin is worth up to $977,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket this very moment. Have you ever held something so ordinary that it almost felt invisible? A single penny. Faded, dull, forgotten in the bottom of a drawer. But what if that same penny, the one you might have walked past 1,000 times, could be worth nearly $1 million? This isn't a fairy tale. It's a secret buried in the year 1981. And tonight, you're about to discover why one humble Lincoln penny with no mint mark could be your ticket to a life you never imagined. Because in 1981, something went wrong. The United States Mint was preparing for a massive transition, the final full year before the copper penny would fade into history. But in that final chapter, a quiet mistake slipped through the cracks. Some Lincoln cents left the mint without their D, without their S, without any mark at all to tell where they were born at a blank. A ghost penny. Now, here's where the story turns from ordinary to astonishing. That missing mint mark wasn't just an oversight. It was a signal, a whisper from the past. You see, in 1981, both the Philadelphia and San Francisco mints were producing coins. The San Francisco mint, in particular, was supposed to mark its proof coins with an S. But a few slipped out bare, naked, no mint mark. And those few coins, struck with proof dies meant for collectors, somehow made it into regular circulation. To the untrained eye, they looked like any other penny. But to collectors, they became legend. Imagine this. A man in Ohio years later, cashing in an old jar of change. He spots a clean 1981 penny, smooth and bright, with Lincoln's face perfectly struck, but no mint mark beneath the date. He almost tosses it back. Something stops him. A feeling. A whisper. He sends it for grading. Weeks later, he gets a call. His ordinary penny is a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. Now insured for over $950,000, 0.1 coin. One life, changed forever. How many times have we all passed treasures like that, blind to what they really are? Coins that could buy freedom mistaken for pocket change. But the secret is this: the 1981 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just rare. It's a bridge between two eras. The end of pure copper. The last breath of the old American cent before it turned to zinc. It carries history in its skin, and a mistake that the mint never intended to reveal. Now, let's talk about what makes your 1981 penny possibly priceless. Hold it under good light. Look closely beneath the date. If there's no small letter, no D, no S, you might be staring at something incredible. But here's the key detail. The no mint mark penny you want shows sharper edges, deeper color, and a mirror-like shine. It often feels heavier, richer than the rest. Many were proofs that slipped through, struck twice with extra pressure. That's what gives them their crisp, bold look. If your coin matches that description, it deserves protection. Never clean it, never polish it, and never sell it to a pawn shop. Submit it to a professional grading service, PCGS or NGC, and let the experts confirm its worth. Because here's the truth that most people will never hear. Some of these 1981 no mint mark pennies have fetched jaw-dropping prices, up to $981,000 for pristine examples with proof-like surfaces. And they're still out there, hidden in jars, in drawers, in old wallets that haven't been opened since the Reagan years. You might be sitting on one right now. This isn't just about money. It's about the idea that fortune hides in plain sight. That even the smallest, most overlooked piece of your past could hold a future beyond your wildest dreams. So, after this video ends, I want you to do one thing. Go find that old coin jar, that dusty coffee can in the garage. Pull out every 1981 penny, and check carefully, because lightning doesn't always strike loud. Sometimes, it's silent, copper-colored, and sitting quietly in your hand. And when you find it, when you realize what you're holding, remember this moment. Because right now, that 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is worth up to $981,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket right now. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a dull copper penny, and holding a small, forgotten fortune between your fingers. Because right now, across America, there's a coin. One that looks almost invisible to the untrained eye, hiding in plain sight. It's the 1986 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, and for some reason, this one tiny coin has the power to turn disbelief into destiny. You see, 1986 was supposed to be just another year for the U.S. Mint. The presses were running nonstop, spitting out billions of Lincoln cents. Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, each mint stamping its mark, its pride, its proof of origin. But somewhere in that process, something slipped through the cracks. Something the mint never intended to release. A batch of coins escaped without a mint mark. Now, that might sound small, insignificant even, but in the world of numismatics, those missing letters are a scream in the silence. Because when a mint mark vanishes, it doesn't just disappear. It creates history. Imagine the confusion, the disbelief, the first collector who found one and thought, this has to be a mistake. It was a mistake so rare that decades later, it still sends a shiver through anyone who knows what to look for. But the real question is, how many are still out there? How many lie buried in old coffee cans, sitting forgotten in drawers, sleeping in dusty jars of spare change? Because this is not just a story about a coin, it's about the idea that something as small as a penny could rewrite your life story. Let's step back in time. 1986, the year the Statue of Liberty turned 100. America was booming, the mint was modernizing, and coinage was transitioning into the zinc era. That's right, the pennies weren't pure copper anymore. They were thinly coated, lighter, cheaper to make. But even with this shift, every coin was supposed to carry one thing: its identity. Denver had its D. San Francisco had its S. And Philadelphia, though it traditionally had no mint mark on regular coins, should have had certain identifiers depending on the strike process and location. But a handful of 1986 Lincoln cents came out differently. Minted in Philadelphia but with missing cues, wrong dies, or faint anomalies that only sharp eyes could catch. And the story only got stranger from there. Collectors began whispering about faint doubling on Lincoln's profile, strange die errors near the date, and the impossible, proof-like finishes on circulation coins. Some of these were just myths, but others were real, verified, graded, sold. A coin that cost 1 cent to make, now worth tens of thousands, and one, authentic, immaculate, untouched, valued at nearly $1 million. What if you've already held it once? What if it slipped through your fingers at a gas station or fell through a vending machine? Gone forever. That's the fear that drives collectors. The haunting idea that the treasure has already passed through their hands. But here's the truth. It might still be waiting, so let's talk about how to find it. First, the date. 1986. Not 1986. D. Not 1986. S. Just a plain, simple 1986. No mint mark under the year. Next, the details. Look closely at Lincoln's profile, the lettering on "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." Any doubling, any sharp imperfections in the rim, any signs of a weak or misaligned strike, these could point to a rare variety. And if your coin looks oddly sharp with a mirror-like surface, you might be holding something more than a penny. Handle it carefully. Never clean it. Never polish it. Place it in a protective case and let an expert or grading service like PCGS or NGC examine it. Because once it's certified, your 1-cent coin could suddenly be worth more than most people's cars or homes. But here's the part most people miss. Rarity isn't just about numbers. It's about survival. How many of these coins are still alive today, still pristine, still waiting for discovery? The answer: almost none. So every day, every handful of change, every coin that slips through your hands is a chance. A whisper from history telling you to look again. People think wealth comes from big moves, from luck, from inheritance. But the truth is, sometimes it comes from awareness, from curiosity, from seeing what others overlook. That's the secret. That's how ordinary people become legends in the coin world. By paying attention. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you shake the coins from that jar you've ignored for years, look closer. Because inside that mix of copper and zinc, of dates and memories, could be the story that changes your life. The story of a single 1986 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark. And right now, this exact penny is worth up to $985,000, and it could be sitting in someone's pocket. Right now. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info. Imagine this. You're holding an ordinary penny, dull copper, maybe a little scratched. You drop it on the counter, and it clinks without a second thought. But what if that same penny could change your life? Tonight, we're not talking about myths, rumors, or lucky guesses. We're talking about a real 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark that's quietly rewriting the rules of American coin collecting. A coin so deceptively ordinary that millions of people have touched it, spent it, or thrown it into a jar, never realizing it could be worth close to $1 million. How could that be possible? Because the truth about this coin isn't in what you see. It's in what's missing. You see, every penny tells a story, not just of copper and zinc, but of a system that sometimes makes mistakes. In 1998, the US Mint was running at full speed. Billions of coins struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Machines were overworked, dies wore down, and human eyes blurred after hours of repetition. Somewhere in that storm of precision and pressure, something slipped. A handful of 1998 pennies were struck without a mint mark. No D, no S, nothing. Just the face of Lincoln staring ahead, framed by silence. To the mint, it was a ghost, a coin that shouldn't exist. To collectors, it was a whisper of fortune. Most Americans never noticed. They spent it on gum, on a payphone, on a soda. But a few, just a few, looked closer. They saw the absence, the tiny gap in the nation's machinery. They realized they were holding a mistake worth more than a lifetime of paychecks. What makes this penny special isn't just the missing mint mark. It's the combination 1998, Lincoln design, no mint mark, and a specific die pairing that gives away its secret. The spacing of Liberty, the clarity of Lincoln's eye, the crispness of the date, all clues left behind by the mint's unintentional fingerprint. But here's where the story turns from curiosity to legend. In 2019, a small-town collector stumbled across one of these 1998 no-mint mark pennies while sorting through old rolls from a local bank. He thought it was a mistake. He almost spent it. But something made him pause, a feeling, an instinct. He sent it off for grading. Weeks later, the report came back. 1998 Lincoln cent. No mint mark, high grade, rare variety. The coin sold privately for over $296,000. Others, in pristine condition, are now valued near the $1 million mark. Think about that. A 1-cent coin, capable of paying off your home, your debts, your future. So let me ask you this. How many 1998 pennies have you handled in your life? How many might still be sitting in your drawer, unnoticed, collecting dust, hiding a secret that could rewrite your story? Because here's the truth no one tells you. The mint's biggest mistakes don't announce themselves. They hide in plain sight. The only difference between those who find them and those who lose them is attention. When you look at your 1998 pennies, turn them under the light. Check the date, crisp, perfectly centered. Then, look for the space where a mint mark should be, just under the date on the right side of Lincoln's portrait. If it's blank, smooth, untouched, your heart should skip a beat. That's your sign. But be careful. The world is full of counterfeits and altered coins. Never scratch, polish, or try to clean it. Don't trust online rumors or quick buyers. Send it to a professional grading service, PCGS or NGC. Let the experts confirm what you already suspect. Because once it's verified, everything changes. Every collector has one moment, one spark, that transforms a hobby into destiny. For some, it's the first silver dime found in change. For others, it's the whisper of copper in a handful of coins. But for a rare few, it's this penny. The 1998 Lincoln, no mint mark, standing like a silent witness to history's imperfections and fortune's hidden door. You might be sitting on it right now. You might be seconds away from discovering something people have spent decades searching for. All it takes is one glance and a little courage to look twice so before you walk away. Before you spend another coin without looking, ask yourself, what if your next penny isn't just a penny? Because right now, this exact 1998 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is worth up to $998,000, and it could be resting quietly in someone's pocket, waiting to change everything.